Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel and thank you for clicking on the video. That's right, we have a Limbo build video in 2024. I guarantee it wasn't on your bingo card, but here we are. I hope you enjoyed that intro. It took me like 4 hours to make. I had a real blast making it, honestly, and the gameplay I think speaks for itself. Now, this does include an Invigoration, of course, as you saw. However, this build is still usable and very, very strong without it. There are plenty of weapons, even without Rivens, that can get very high crit chance. But this is just sort of a meme, semi-serious build for Limbo because, of course, Limbo is very gimmicky. Nobody plays him outside of maybe the weird Limbo mains out there. But, you know, this video is for you guys, and let's talk about the build. Before I showcase the build and talk about it, I do want to state some of the issues that Limbo has. Most people already know, but if you're new, Limbo has had quite a few reworks. He's not terrible, but he's very gimmicky. Like I said, he requires an attention to detail in order to manage his abilities effectively and play him with a decent amount of success. One of the main things that Limbo has problem with is nullifiers. In fact, I'll actually spawn some. His Cataclysm actually just completely gets turned off whenever there's a nullifier within range. So if I just cast one here, and if I try to cast my Cataclysm, it just immediately gets destroyed instantly. That, I think, is a big problem. Let's say I have it over here, and they walk into it, boom, it's destroyed. So Limbo is horrible against the Corrupted. He's horrible against the Corpus. That is really unfortunate. But he's actually quite strong against the other factions. So Murmur would be a good example. They're new. They don't have any sort of nullifying features. The Grenier, depending on the tile set, and of course the Infested. However, the other problem with Limbo is his stasis and grouping abilities. So if I cast, let's see, let's spawn some more enemies. If I go ahead and pop my 4 here and activate Larva, they'll all get pulled. No problem. Absolutely no problem. Now, if I go ahead and just kind of reset it here. Now, if I do it while there's stasis turned on and activate my 4, see they're frozen, I activate Larva, nothing. They can't be pulled. It doesn't work with pull. It doesn't work with air burst. Doesn't work with Larva. Any sort of grouping ability. Like I said, there's a little bit of nuance. He's also not really team player friendly. Some people build him with way too much range. It prevents kind of the fun factor for other teammates who are trying to run and gun. It can cause issues. Like I said, with the nullifiers, the stasis, it just can become irritating, especially when you throw in his Rift Surge on top of that. So just keep that in mind. I think Limbo is very strong as a solo frame. Um, Now, like I said, even though I have the Invigoration here, you can still get decent red crits with all sorts of weapons, not just the Strun. I just used it because I thought it was really funny to have over 300% crit chance and almost 600% status. So let's actually talk about the build now and go from there. Now this is the Limbo build. Like I said, this is Zero Forma. The arcanes are completely optional. Number one, Avenger is a really good arcane. You should definitely get it if you don't have it. Um, all my crit chance is mainly coming from the Invigoration. But without that, I would probably rely on Avenger to help bolster my primary damage or any damage in general to get me better red crits. And then of course Energize. This is not mandatory at all because Limbo actually has a really good passive. While he's in the rift, he gains energy. When he kills enemies, he gets energy. So, very strong passive. So you really don't need Energize. You could throw in Molt-Efficiency for more duration. If you're using a specific weapon, you can use, an arcane like Arcane Precision or Arcane Rise or whatever. It's totally optional. Now, for the actual mods, we are using Holster Amp. Now, this is totally optional. I was just using this because I wanted my Strun to do more damage, but I would probably recommend Corrosive Projection or Energy Siphon to bolster his passive, or you can even just, make the enemies a little bit weaker. The only really expensive thing, I guess, for this build outside of the Arcanes would be the Exilus slot and Prime Sure-Footed. Don't worry if you don't have it. You can run Cunning Drift for more range if you want. Or if you want to use the regular version of Prime Sure-Footed, it is optional. However, the weakest things that Limbo deals with is, like I said, the Eximus enemies. They can knock you down. They can ignore his rift. So be sure to take note of that. Now, we are using just the base Augur mods. We don't need so much duration that our larva never goes away, and we don't want so much range that we're constantly running back and forth such great distances to actually track down where the enemies are. So you want to keep it minimal but decent, strong. You'll notice too we only have base intensify. You don't really need any strength on Limbo. This is only because of the Rift Torrent. This is a really good augment. We're pairing that with Cataclysmic Continuum. Every enemy we kill will increase his 4 duration by 1 second, so we don't have to recast it a bunch. And Rift Torrent is there just to increase our weapon damage. So for every enemy affected by Rift Surge, it's going to increase your damage by 30% flat while they're in the Rift. Now, it does scale with strength. Like I said, we're just using Intensify. So for every 30% strength, you get roughly 10% increased damage. I know it's 9. It might be a rounding error, but it's roughly 9 to 10. So, and then, of course, Stasis. I don't think there's actually an augment for Stasis yet. Be kind of interesting to see if they kind of make it like an Exilus where pulling abilities now work. And like that would be like kind of the cop out, but it would be pretty nice to actually use if they ended up doing that. But maybe we'll see. Now, my only survivability mod is Prime Redirection. If you don't have Energize, maybe put Arcane Barrier or Arcane Aegis. This would be really good. Like I said, the only enemies that are really going to be getting you is the Acolytes and the Eximus units. I just threw this in here just because I am using the Augur mods. Might as well give myself overshields, right? Larger shield gate, because as you saw in the gameplay, yeah, I was getting touched. I mean, you can still die even with this playstyle. That's why I said it is kind of a heavy micromanaging playstyle. Requires a large attention of detail when you're playing as Limbo, whereas most frames it's just close your eyes, hold the trigger, and hit your fourth ability and clear the map over and over for like 2 hours. Lastly, natural talent, absolutely mandatory. You cannot play Limbo without casting speed. Why? Because if you try to use his 4 without any casting speed, this is what it looks like. That'll get you killed. Same with his stasis ability. Way too slow. If you want to put in the shards and then throw a different mod in there, you can, the yellow shards. I don't recommend it. I think a lot of other frames benefit from those Archon shards a lot more, especially because of how rare, quote unquote, how difficult, quote unquote, they are to get, especially for new players. So just use natural talent. It's in the game for a reason. It's very old. Everybody should have this. If you don't buy it off the market, it's pretty cheap. Now, for my companion, we are using Nautilus. Nautilus is probably top 3 best companions in the game currently due to his mod Cordon and how it works with Manifold Bond. Killing enemies who are affected by statuses will reduce your companion ability by 3 seconds. So, Cordon is a grouping ability, and you might be thinking, well, Stasis is interrupting that, right? Yes. However, some of the enemies will not always be affected by stasis, and you're not always going to be in the center of your cataclysm. It still pulls enemies who are outside of the rift, but once they get to it, they will be stopped by stasis. But that does help with Rift Surge. So keep that in mind. Manifold Bond, really, really good mod. And then we've got, some health orbs and shield regen, things like that. And then, of course, primary primed animal instinct for the enemy radar. That's really good for Limbo. Helps keep track of where the enemies are, so you know what side of your cataclysm to be on. The main thing, and this is a video I've already made, is the Verglas and Shivering Contagion. This is really good for Limbo because he's all about control and CC. And this is a really good mod. Go check out my video talking about this because the way it interacts with Verglas is really strong. It's just a continuous beam of cold affecting the enemy. And if you don't know or haven't heard, cold got buffed. It now actually buffs your critical damage. So attacks up to 90% slower and takes up to 50% more critical damage with multiple stacks. It is temporary, but the cold never stops thanks to this mod because it's a beam weapon. It is innate cold, so you don't technically need rhyme rounds, but I just wanted extra cold, extra status. If you wanted to add other things in there, you could. The reload, the reach, everything is really, really nice, specifically just for CC. We've got all the damage we need thanks to the Strun, at least in this case, but I always encourage my viewers to always take my builds a step farther. I am not trying to state ever that my build is the de facto build and what you need to use. I'm simply recommending it, and I encourage you guys in the comments to always tell me about how you improved it or why you think it needs to be improved in this way. Go for it. But the Verglas Shivering Contagion, I made a video on it already. Go check that out. Now let's talk about the Strun. Now, I do have a Riven in it. In fact, I have a ton of Strun Rivens. I don't know why, but I just get so lucky. I actually opened up all of these myself. I didn't buy any of these. So, I'm not trying to brag, but, humble brag, I guess. Anyway, the one I used for the video, at least, was just this one. The status chance, critical damage, and heat is pretty nice. It gets me almost to 600% status. Now, if you don't have a Riven, obviously, you can just throw in Scorch with Scattering Inferno. No problem. It does lower your damage just a little bit, but as you can see, you still have over 500% status. And if you're wondering what the crit chance is without Limbo, oh, let's go to Lavos here. It's 168. Really, really strong. If you're curious about the evolutions, we went with status, reload, and multi-shot. Another option you can use is actually Hunter Munitions. You have so much crit. If you want to maybe focus less on the heat and just go with viral, because the alt fire doesn't have heat like most of the incarnates. It's actually blast, which you could technically use for shield gating. Topaz Shard Limbo video maybe? I don't think so. All right, so Hunter Munitions is a great option if you don't want to do that and just focus on, maybe if you want to go longer into the mission with Hunter Munitions, viral priming, etc. That's definitely an option, but this is the build I'm using. Now for the Arcane, I'm using Primary Merciless. You could use Vendetta. I just like Merciless because of the extra 360% damage, combining that with Prime Point Blank, and then the extra reload speed is really nice because one of the Strun's biggest weaknesses is the reload speed. So keep that in mind. But you don't even have to use the Strun. There are plenty of other really good weapons. I would probably recommend the Miter. Miter Incarnate is really good. Maybe even the Probo Cyrnos if you're, armor stripping some way. You can pretty much use Limbo however you want. I'm just using the Strun, like I said, because of the Invigoration I had, giving me just absurd amount of stats. So again, at the end of the day, this video is for fun, but it's also semi-serious because Limbo is not a frame I see really anybody making videos on. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm gonna end it here. Kind of different from the way I normally do my outros, but 2024 just came, and I'm really excited about the new year. I actually have a lot of things planned for the channel. I don't want to say anything yet because some things are still pending, but I have some big things coming. I'm excited to share it with you when I can. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, leave a comment what you thought. Limbo is a meme frame, but you can make them good with the right build, and it doesn't cost anything. So the gameplay shows that. Leave a comment down below what you thought. Subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.